Hello gardeners, I'm John Bowen, a Buncombe County Extension Master Gardener, back with you again to talk about starting seeds and growing transplants indoors. It's part 3, which I talk to you about when to start your seeds, the planting process, and give you some tips and tricks to speed you on your way. Let's get started. Let's go on and get to the good part, because one of the toughest questions we have as seed planters is when to actually plant them. It is one that will make you just go bonkers, as you see my little friend there in the picture. When do you sow the seed? When do you plant them out? One of the mistakes that I have made over the years is I get anxious and I tend to plant too early, and then I get giant transplants and it's just a pain. Little transplants seem to do better. Maybe it's counterintuitive, but a little tomato plant that you transplant out is going to out yield over time the 1 gallon giant tomato plant that you transplant out. Don't be in a rush, but you have to make a decision of when's the right time to plant. And the way we're going to approach it is kind of backwards. We're going to ask the question first, when do you expect to put these plants out in the field? When are they going into the garden? That's your starting point. Then we're going to back up from there. When you plant them out depends on your frost date and the soil temperature. And that's why a soil thermometer is kind of nice. But let's look at frost date. For you in Black Mountain, your average last spring frost date is April 27th. But 18% chance, 1 in 5 times, you're going to get frost as late as May 10th. And a 2% chance, 1 in 50 times, you're going to get frost as late as May 23rd. So you're trying to anticipate that while planting your seeds now. But think about this. If you say, I'm going to plant on the 1st of May, I'm a 1st of May planter. Well, when 1st of May comes around and the weather forecast is for frost on May 10th and you don't transplant those transplants, how big are they going to get in the intervening time? Can you handle them? Do you have a place for them? Can you keep them growing? Can you keep them warm? Can you keep them healthy? If you do plant out on May 1st and the May 10th frost comes in, do you have a way to cover them? Can you protect them from that? And those are decisions that are very personal. I can't make them for you, but think about that. One way to get at this question of when do you actually transplant out is to go online and check some local resources. This is the Western North Carolina planting calendar that the Extension Service has put out. It looks a little scary. I boxed the part I want there. We're going to talk about basil. Basil is temperature sensitive. And you notice if you go across the chart in the red box there, I put a red arrow showing you that the Extension Service recommends planting out your basil the last week of May. It says S and T. Well, S is for planting seed. T is for doing transplants. We're talking about transplants now. So if that's your target, last week of May, or the last half of May, when do you actually put the seeds in the containers, in the basement, under the light, wherever you have your seeds? Well, you can back up to where it says days to harvest, and you can do some math and you can work it out. It's kind of complicated. Maybe you can find it on that same seed packet we've been referring to. For eggplant, where the arrow is, it says 8 to 10 weeks prior to planting in the garden. So if May 15th is your day, you're doing eggplant, back off 8 to 10 weeks, and that's your planting time. And again, that assumes that you have good temperature, that you're going to get optimum growth. If they're going to sit there at 60 degrees and not sprout, you could be waiting a long time on those eggplants. Another resource that I really like, and I gave you a reference to this, and if you have the actual handout pieces, I put a link right on the slide for you, is Johnny's Selected Seed. They have an interactive calculator where you just put in your last frost date or your anticipated last frost date. Here I put May 15th in there, I believe. And then it gives you a whole big table of possible plants. I put the red arrow by basil once again, just so we can be consistent. And if you look at that, you can see that it says that the number of weeks to start the plant before setting it out is 6 weeks. They did the math for you. So that means April 10th. Is their day for planting basil based on a May 15th last frost date. If you go over farther to the right, you keep going though, you see that they recommend waiting a week. If May 15th is your last frost date, wait another week, they suggest on basil because it's so temperature sensitive. This is a great piece because it's so hard to calculate it back and every seed is different. They have hundreds of seeds that they list in the table for you and it's a super reference. I use it quite a bit when I'm not sure about how to do a new plant. So far, we've learned a lot about containers. We've learned about media. We've learned about light. We've learned about temperature. I've given you an idea, I think, of when to plant these seeds out. So now the fun part is when we actually get to start putting them in the containers. Well, There again, the question is, how deep do I plant the little seed? It's not stamped on the seed, so how do I know? Check your seed packet. On the eggplant packet here, it says 1/4 inch deep. A good rule of thumb is twice the diameter of the seed. And remember, when you pop these guys in there, some seeds are going to need light to germinate. Lettuce is the classic example. So don't over cover them. Don't plant too deep. Follow the instructions. Label your containers. You don't know how many times I said, I'll remember which tomato is which. Doesn't happen. Label your containers, cover them with a transparent cover until they come up, and then you can pull the cover off and you're good to go. So we're going to take a little bit of time here real quick. Just give me a Zoom show of hands. How many of you have ever done everything right and the stupid seeds just won't germinate? Okay, I see hands wiggling all over. You've had the same problems I have. So here's my quick tips for you. First thing, pre-germinate them on a paper towel. Put them on a paper towel, cover them up, put them in a plastic bag, try to keep them in that 80-degree range. Look at them and see which ones are getting fat, which ones actually have root tips coming out. Pre-germinate, actually put them on the towel and let them make roots. You see I've circled the radicle there on these pumpkin seeds for you. You can see what we're looking at. That's a good way to get them going and only plant out the ones that you know are actually going to germinate. Here's the problem. Those little roots want to grow down, of course, and they may grow into the paper towel. And if that root tip gets buried in the paper towel, if it actually gets into the towel, you pluck the seed up, you can break the tip off and you've killed the seed. I have done that so many times on peppers. So here's my quick tip. Don't put them on a big flat paper towel. Cut your paper towel into little squares, plant one seed per paper towel, and if the root tip grows into the paper towel and you can't get the seed off, plant it piece of towel and all. It's a thin little towel. The root will grow right through it. It won't be a problem, and you won't be breaking root tips off. Something else to keep in mind, some seeds are hard, they're thick-shelled, they do not want to let water in. You have to use a process called scarification. That's nicking the seed coat. You're not taking it off, you're just nicking it, cutting a hole, sanding a hole, making it easier for the water to get in there. If you go online, you will find a whole bunch of videos showing how to scarify. Most of them show some very good techniques for scarifying. So if your seeds are super hard and they've been just scraggly and slow to germinate and don't come up well, this may be your problem. And one last tip here for you is what we call stratification. Some seeds require a cold, wet period. Just yesterday, I planted some comfrey seeds and the seed packet said, stratify for 30 days, put them in the refrigerator. They have to be damp. They can't just be dry. So put them in a damp paper towel, roll them up, stick them in a bag in the refrigerator. Mix them with some sand or some perlite, stick it in the refrigerator. Plant them in your media right now. Set your media outside. Give them maybe 4 weeks outside. Let them freeze, let them thaw, let them stay cold. It's still not too late to do that. Here are some plants that are likely to need it. Fortunately, almost all of our garden vegetables, no problem. They don't need it. But many of our perennials need the stratification. So if you're planting turtle heads or lupins or coneflowers or baby's breath now, get them in the refrigerator wet now or get them outside now because they need that time before you let them get into the warm media. 3 tips: pre-germinate them, scarify them if they need them, stratify them if they need them. If you water them, use room temperature water. The cold water can be a real shock for them. Fine mist, don't wash them out. You can follow these on your notes here. After germination, the containers should be uncovered. Get lights close, watch for sunburning. The one last important piece here is after germination, you may need to start fertilizing. Once you get 2 true leaves, you may need to add fertilizer. If you're using the sunshine mix, it has no fertilizer and you're going to have to add some. Often we use a liquid fertilizer at half strength, maybe fish emulsion, maybe Miracle Grow or Peters, but get the strength down, don't overwhelm them. You'll see it. If the plants look pale, if they're yellow instead of green, they probably need fertilizer. On the other hand, if the edges of the leaves are burned and crisp, you may have overdone the fertilizer. Back off and give them a good flush. And you might want to add a fan to circulate the air around the plants. You get the plants waving back and forth in the fan a little bit. It builds strong stems. It makes them stockier. It makes them even easier to transplant. And if you do all this, pick a good media, pick good pots, pick good seeds, Watch your light, watch your temperature. Don't make it too complicated, but pay attention to the things you think are most important. Everything should work fine. And whoopee, it's time to transplant. Just don't forget to harden them off. They can't go indoors to the garden for a week or so till they get tough, and then to the garden. I hope I haven't made a relatively simple process too complicated. I wanted to show you what some of the options are, some of the choices, some things you can do to improve what you do. But the most important thing is to get started. Come to the library, get some containers, get some soil, plant some seeds, watch what happens. Pay attention, take notes. You can do this. Do we have time for some more questions, Melissa?
Yes, John, we do. Mary Lou says that if you have 36 cells and they germinate at different times, how many have to be up before you take off the plastic cover?
That is a really good question. My rule is that if half of them are up, I will pull off the plastic cover. Now, this assumes that my whole tray is one thing. If I have 36 pepper seeds in there, if half of them come up, I will pull off the cover because I know the rest of them are committed to come and they will come soon. If it's a mixture of material, if I have basil and tomatoes and peppers all in one tray, then I've got to be more careful. I might end up taking out the tomatoes and set them aside and leave the cover on until the peppers come up because they're slower. So use your judgment there.
Thanks, John. We have several questions related to hardening. Can you tell us more about hardening off, the best method to harden plants, and just re-explain that process for us?
Okay, I mentioned that very quickly. Your plants indoors have been babied. They're not ready for the real world. They haven't had the wind, they haven't had the rain, they haven't had the cooler nights. So the hardening off process is just a way to get them toughened up so they can go out there and fight for life in your garden. So the way we typically do it is take them outside, put them in the shade. Don't challenge them with sun yet. Put them in the shade and just let them get used to the temperature fluctuations, the breezes. If there's some rain, that's okay. Let them get used to being out in the real world temperatures, and then move them over into a sunny place. You can put them where they get morning sun, they're fine. If you have some shade under a tree where they get some filtered sun, that's fine. If you just put them out directly into full sun, you can get a little sunburning and your leaves are going to bleach out, and that's not a good thing. You're watching the water, don't let them dry out. I usually try to go 2 weeks on mine. Other people have said that a week is adequate.
John, 3 remaining questions. What is the definition of a true leaf?
Oh, yes. When your plants first come up, they're going to have a very characteristic leaf on them, and that's the one we call the cotyledonary leaf. It actually is coming out of the seed, and it will usually not have any big divisions. It'll usually be fairly uniform in shape. It's the one that was formed in the seed. And once that gets out of the soil, that starts getting light. The plant says, aha, I'm out in the light. I don't have to be forcing through the soil anymore. Then the shoot will come out in the area of those first cotyledonary leaves, and you'll get your first leaf that actually looks like the real leaf on your plant. So you know how tomatoes have really divided leaves. You would recognize a tomato leaf if you saw one. Well, the first leaf on a tomato is just a skinny little oval thing. It doesn't look anything like a tomato leaf. But the next leaves that come out above that actually look like little tiny tomato leaves. You say, oh yeah, that looks tomatoey. Those usually come out in pairs. So you'll get the cotyledonary leaf, and then a few days later, you'll get the tomatoey looking leaf. And then above that, a few days later, you'll get the next tomatoey looking leaf. And that's what we say the first 2 true leaves. So the tomatoey looking leaf is the true leaf. You get 2 of those, and that's a good time to start fertilizing, because the seed usually has enough resources to sustain the plant quite well until it gets to that size.
Charlie asks, where can you get the clear plastic domes for the 1020s?
Most of the nursery centers carry them. I was over in Fifth Season Gardening the other day. They had them. I imagine that all of the nursery centers that carry the trays, probably Reams Creek, Jesse Israel, BB Barnes, they probably all have those. You can order them online. Just allow enough time to get them here. They will last for years. I don't use them out in the sun because they turn yellow in the sun, but indoors under the lights, I have covers that I've probably had for 10 years and they're still fine.
There's a couple more questions about hardening off. Do you bring the plants in at night while you're hardening them off? And is the
Oh,
hardening off before the actual transplant date?
I watch the weather like a crazy person. If it's going to be below 40 degrees at night, I will bring them into the garage. I have played the game of taking it down to say 35 degrees at night, but if it's clear and 35 degrees, you can get what they call radiant cooling. You can get frost damage, even though you may not see a whole lot of frost out on the roofs of the grass. So my cutoff is if it's below 40 degrees, I will bring them in just to protect them. And you do that before you put them out in the garden. If you're going to transplant them out too quickly, then you need to protect them out in the garden. So what some gardeners do is transplant them out fairly early, and then they'll put some sort of a cloche over them. I have cut the bottoms out of plastic milk jugs and set those over them so that it acts like a little mini greenhouse. Most of us don't. Most of them say, well, we'll just wait 2 weeks there on the driveway in the sun and then put them out in the soil.
Can you recommend a liquid fertilizer?
I am hesitant to recommend a liquid fertilizer. I have used many. There are a lot of them out there. One of the questions you need to ask yourself is, are you looking for an organic fertilizer, or are you okay what we call an inorganic fertilizer? An old garden standard for years and years was Miracle Grow. It's not a liquid, but you just take the crystals, put them in some water, swirl it around, it turns blue, and you apply it as a liquid. It's a chemical fertilizer as opposed to an organic. The other extreme on the organic side is fish emulsion. Many gardeners love fish emulsion. The thing about fish emulsion, for the most part, is it's a very slow release fertilizer. So on your seedlings, if you're feeding fish emulsion and they're looking kind of yellow, it may take a little while because that fish emulsion has to be digested in the soil, break down a little bit. It doesn't immediately feed the plant. I use fish emulsion outdoors. I don't like to use it indoors because it can be a little bit smelly. Peters makes a very good product that many growers like. There are several fertilizers that are available that are already in the liquid stage. I have one of those in my basement that I use quite a bit because it gives me good micronutrients. So there are many, many choices there. It would be worthwhile to go to one of your local garden centers and find a knowledgeable person and ask them what they're recommending and what they've had success with.
Vicki, noticed that you had a foil backing behind your plants, and is that beneficial for lighting and heat?
Wow, good eye. I have a piece of foil back there. It's actually a piece of insulation board with the foil backing on it. I have it there just to reflect some light because my fluorescent tubes put out quite a bit of light to the side, which is wasted to me. So I just put it against the back wall and it reflects the light back down to my plants. I thought, well, if it makes it just a little bit more efficient and I capture a little more light, it's worth doing.
John, well done. Those are all the questions.
Well, my goodness, those were good questions. You guys were paying attention. If you have more questions, I put on the screen there for you and in your notes, the Buncombe County Master Gardener Helpline. There's our phone number there. The email is nice because if your plants are looking kind of weird and you want to take a snapshot and email it to us, that makes it much easier. We are there Monday and Wednesday 10 to 2 and Friday 10 to noon. We are not open quite yet. We'll be there starting the first part of March during the growing season. And that's a great place to get more information. That concludes part 3. Hope you enjoyed the journey, and I hope you've learned something new and have a clear idea of how to start seeds and grow good transplants indoors. I'm John Bowen, signing off now and wishing you good luck and good gardening.